Hey y'all, welcome to Widow Wit and Wisdom. I'm Sarah. My co-host Marissa and I are so glad that you're here. We can't wait to share all our Widow Wit and Wisdom with you. A few quick warnings about us and this podcast. We will be diving into some very hard subjects that may be triggering for some people. Widowhood and grief, suicide loss, mental health, we're going to cover all of it. These are all hard subjects, but Marissa and I will tackle them all openly, honestly, passionately, and fearlessly because we have walked through the hellfire and earned our right to do that. So we may ruffle some feathers and strike some nerves with our cussing and our crying as we dive into the deep, hard subjects. But I can assure you, you will take something away from this, good or bad. You have been warned. So get ready, grab your drink of choice, pull up your chair, and join us for our first episode together of Widow Wit and Wisdom. So as this is our first episode together, Marissa and I thought we should kind of introduce ourselves a little bit and our stories, how we became widows, how we met, all of that good stuff. So let's start with how we met, because Marissa and I actually have known each other for 10 years. I've only been a widow 8 years, and she's been 5 years, right? Now.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So let's first start with a little bit of how we met each other.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to jump into that for us today, Marissa? How the hell did we meet? Bounce houses?
Very exciting. So it was actually Sarah's son's prom night, and we had a mutual friend. I know it was years ago. We had a mutual friend named Diana, whose son was also going to prom. And so we just thought we'd all get together after pictures and stuff and have a couple drinks and just enjoy after watching them take off to their dance. And I had been there for quite some time. And then in walks Sarah. And she was this vibrant light, full of energy, full of just happiness, joy. I mean, she just lit the room up with her energy. And I was so excited to get to meet her, get to know her, know everything about her, because she was she was just such a bright light that when as soon as she walks in the room lights up. And so I was so excited to have conversation and know, who she was and what she was about. And she was there with her husband, Jeff, and I was actually engaged at the time to my husband, Elijah. And so we were all there, couples, and we were sitting outside and enjoying drinks. And we got to talking about marriage, because Elijah and I were in the engagement phase of our relationship, and Sarah and Diana both had been married for years with wonderful, happy families, relationships. And so Elijah and I were very excited to take away some of the things they had to say about marriage and how exciting and fun and all the memories you get to make. So I was so happy to meet both of them. It was way more fun than I thought it was going to be. We involved, beverages and a jump house and all kinds of things. But the experience itself was just so wonderful. And Jeff and Sarah were just unbelievably welcoming and kind and authentic. And Elijah and we adapted to them real quickly.
Mm-hmm. We did. And we actually hung out a lot more. Like after that, we were involved in the same church and things like that. So we saw each other. Like I've met Elijah's family at crawfish boils at the church and things like that. So we knew each other before becoming widows. For me, I guess in 2014, that would have been kind of the best time of my life, actually. That was our last kid graduating. We were, excited to be empty nesters. I just remember Jeff and I going home that night and talking about how excited we were for y'all, because we were like, dang, you reminded us of us. Like y'all really loved each other. Like y'all had that like deep bond, and we were so excited for you. It was just so fun to see another what we thought was going to be just such a beautiful love story like ours. And we were excited for you. And who would have thought in that moment that just for me, 2.5 years, and you 5 years later, our lives would look so incredibly differently. I mean, just nothing like that. The happiness was gone. So I guess we should get into a little bit of kind of our personal stories, our husbands, our lives, on how we lost them, so that you can have a little bit more understanding as we go through the podcast, kind of our perspective on things, how things went. And we won't get really too hugely into depth into them today. We'll just kind of give you basics. We'll do the really in-depth stuff later, because for both of us, I think that's a lot bigger than what we have time for today.
Oh,
And then we will
absolutely.
also go over kind of what to expect from the podcast. So let's start with our personal stories.
So, Sarah and I think it's very important for you to understand kind of a little history of our spouses, late spouses, relationships, to kind of really give you a look as to the journey that we had to endure. So, Elijah and I met in high school. We graduated in 2003 from Westfield High School. And we knew of each other during high school, but we didn't ever speak to one another and or have any experiences. We had a mutual friend who actually introduced us, and I remember thinking he was the most handsome, polite, well put together man or young man at the time that I'd ever seen. And I remember telling our mutual friend, I have to talk to him. And she relayed the message, and we were within days talking to each other. He was currently in his first year of college at TSU. And every night we would just talk for hours and hours and hours until we sometimes fell asleep. And we just continued talking and having really good conversations and being a sounding board for one another as to like where we were at that point in our lives, leaving high school, going into college, those types of things. And it was so natural the way that Elijah and I's relationship progressed. We were best friends. We were each other's confidant. We were each other's everything. And we dated probably about 10 years before he made my dreams come true by popping the question unexpectedly in our brand new apartment that we had just moved into. And we dated for 10 years and then we're engaged for 2. We actually got married in 2015. And within months, along came our first baby girl, Ella, who was the light of our life and was opening a whole new journey to our lives as new parents. And, we were learning all the ropes and things of that together. It was a new chapter of our lives that just strengthened us even more. And he was in the master's program for education administration. And so he was gone a lot of times in the evening, and Ella and I, were learning each other and as a new mom and stuff. And it was a wonderful, wonderful time in my life that I will always be thankful for. And within the next 2.5 years, along came Elena. And I remember specifically Elijah saying, she's going to be mine. This is going to be my girl. Like, Ella was always a mama's girl, and she always followed me around and wanted to know what mom was doing. And he was always like, Elena's going to be mine. Like, she's going to be my shadow. And he was so excited to have another baby girl. And we were so, so happy to share the story with our families. And so Elena was born in November of 2018. And 2 months later is when Elijah passed away. So he passed away in January of 2019. And it was a very rough time before he became ill, because I was battling postpartum horrifically. And he and I were trying to navigate those waters. And out of nowhere on a Tuesday, he fell ill, and within a week was gone. So I think it's important for you guys to know our story. And that was a brief summary of me and Elijah's story. And Sarah, I know that you and Jeff's story was totally different. You guys have been married way longer.
We had a very different story than you did. Oh gosh, Jeff and I got married in 1994. I was 19. He was 32. So
Wow.
yeah, we had a big age difference, and a lot of people judged us for that along the way. It was like, oh, she's a gold digger or whatever, kind of thing. And we always thought that was so funny, because we knew the truth, that was nothing near the truth. I was an old soul. He was, I met Jeff through my sister, actually. My sisters are both a lot older than I am. They are 10 and a half and 8.5 years older than I am. And my oldest sister was married at the time to my husband's best friend. So that's how I met him at their house. So I had known him for kind of a long time. And I was, I actually told Jeff that we were going to get married. It was,
Oh.
he, I had my first son when I was 18, Blake, and Jeff came over to meet Blake for the very first time. And this baby had been sick. I mean, so sick. And I hadn't slept in days. He hadn't slept in days, and he had not quit screaming. And Jeff was headed to an engagement party for his brother and his fiance. And he was in a tuxedo, but he wanted to come over and meet Blake. And
Oh.
because Jeff and I had kind of started dating while I was pregnant with Blake. And so he wanted to come over and meet Blake. And he's in this tux, and my kid is screaming and covered in snot. And I mean, just disgusting, right? And I'm like, oh, like, here he is, but like, don't touch him. And he just grabs Blake from me and wraps him in this bear hug, gets like snot all over him. And he holds Blake up in front of him, and he said, I'm so happy to meet you.
Oh, wow.
And Blake looked at him and threw up all over Jeff's tuxedo. And then Jeff like just kind of wiped it off, laid that baby down on his neck, told me to go take a shower, and he missed the engagement party. He sat there because Blake fell asleep on Jeff's shoulder for the first time again in days, peacefully. And he stayed there, missed that party that night, holding my very ill baby. And I walked down the stairs after taking that shower and saw that, burst into tears and said, I'm going to marry you. So we were engaged actually on my birthday. That was in December. And so then my birthday in February, we were engaged. And then we got married September 10th, 1994.
What a story.
Yeah, we had a great marriage. We were two people that were totally imperfect, but perfect for each other. We balanced each other. He was the calm to my chaos, and I was the chaos to his calm. He was the voice of reason in all things. And so, and when you met us in 2014, we were really excited to be empty nesters. Because again, that was our first time in our marriage to not have kids.
Yeah.
And we were ready for it. Let me tell you, we had worked hard on our marriage when the kids were in high school to make sure that we weren't one of those couples that ended up looking at each other when the kids were all gone and going, I don't know who you are. Jeff and I had worked hard on that. And I think we talked about that in the backyard, like telling y'all, like, even when you have kids, like, you make your relationship like yours, because they're not always, those kids are not always yours.
Right.
They are not, but that person you married is. And so we focused on that. So I lost Jeff November 29th of 2016. Jeff died by suicide. And unfortunately, one of the quick misconceptions is that there was some problem in our marriage. That was not the case. There was a legal battle, shame, blame, all of those things, judgment, ultimately is what killed my husband. We will get way deeper into all of that later, but to say that it shattered my entire life, my son's lives, they were adults at that point. My boys, when Jeff died, Blake was days away, I think a week away from his 23rd birthday, and Cayman was just 6 weeks away from his 21st birthday when Jeff died. So we had to celebrate a pretty big birthday pretty quick without him, and that was hard. So there, we'll dive into that a lot more, but yeah, losing him so catastrophically, and just dealing with the extra layers of having lost someone to suicide, because there's a lot more to it. We don't have the outpouring of love and help and support.
Right. It's a lot more judgment, I'm sure.
Most widows have, yeah. So we'll dive into all of that later, but that's just a little bit about Jeff and I. Still think of him all the time, every day. I've been a widow now 8 years, and not a day goes by that he doesn't make me laugh or cry in some way.
I love that.
Usually laugh. So yeah, that's just a little bit, I guess, of our personal history as we get ready to kind of dive into this podcast. So we will get you started. Let's see what we are kind of going to maybe cover and talk about on this podcast. Let's get into that.
With this podcast, Sarah and I's vision was really to bring a light and a resource for widow and widowers who, in that time of their life, feel like they're alone, that they're drowning, and that nobody understands what it is to walk through the path that they're getting ready to walk. We wanted to start this podcast to give each and every one of you guys hope and normalcy while you walk this horrific path. And in our future podcasts, we hope to cover things like kids and mourning, things like the business end of death that a lot of people have no clue about, things like running a household now alone when you were used to a codependent or another human being running that household with you, what that looks like and how much it brings about a difference to your new life. We also would like to talk more in depth about our late spouses' deaths. I think it's very important. Sarah and I's late husband's causes of death were completely different, and that plays a major factor in your walk in widowhood. It makes all the difference in the world. And I know that no two of you guys who choose to tune into us will have the same story, which is so important for you to understand that regardless of how or why your spouse passed away, the aftermath is very real, and it's very much going to be in your face at all times.
It's shattering, period. It doesn't matter how you lost your person that you loved or whatever it was that you loved most. It is shattering, period. And that should be all that matters.
Right.
But our next couple episodes, we will dive into deeper our personal stories, how we've journeyed through it, how we've dealt with things, gotten through it, because we have had very, very different journeys. But while our journeys are all so incredibly unique, they are similar. Widows all have similarities. We can all find understanding and knowledge from one another. So that is what we are hoping to do here in our next few episodes. But we're going to be covering lots of topics along the way. And if you guys have any questions or comments or topics that you would like us to cover, please contact us at widowwitandwisdom@gmail.com, because we would love to cover just anything. We are not afraid to dive in, and we will talk about all the hard things. And I'm not just talking about the hard things, but the hard things. Do you get my drift? So yeah, follow us, subscribe, whatever all those things are. But join us here at Widow Wit and Wisdom as we try to share a little bit of ours with y'all. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.